Hi and welcome to this short video. Over the next few minutes, I want to introduce you to our project on regional nowcasting in the UK. My name is Stuart McIntyre. I'm based at the University of Strathclyde, as are my co-authors Gary Coop and Aubrey Poon. My other co-author, James Mitchell, is based at the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. As always, the standard disclaimer applies that the views expressed in this video are those of ourselves as authors and not necessarily those of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland or the Federal Reserve System. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to talk you through what we've been working on over the last few years, as well as what we will be working on through the next 18 months or so to use econometric techniques and models to produce more timely and higher frequency estimates of regional growth across the UK. So what have we done? Well, when we started out on this project, there was a real issue about the timeliness of regional growth data in the UK. So whereas we got national data around 4 weeks after the end of the quarter that it related to, typically we had to wait more than a year to get equivalent regional growth data, and those data weren't even quarterly, they were annual in nature. Now the situation is better in that ONS is producing quarterly regional growth estimates, but they're produced with a delay of about 6 months after the end of the quarter to which they relate. We've then set about trying to develop econometric methods using Bayesian econometric models, specifically a mixed frequency vector autoregressive model, to try to produce more timely and higher frequency, by which I mean quarterly, estimates of regional growth across the UK. Crucially, we do this leveraging the more timely information we have on the UK economy, and also, now that the ONS are producing their own quarterly growth data, leveraging those new information as well. So why is this important? Well, first of all, for policymakers across the UK, it's important that they know what is happening in different parts of the UK. Now, this has taken on particular importance in an era of enhanced devolution and localism across the UK. We've seen this again over the last couple of years in the context of the so-called levelling up agenda and the need to know much more about the economies across the UK as we do the economy of the UK as a whole. And as I said, ONS have been investing significantly in developing new data products. And what we're trying to do is leverage statistical models and methods to enable these data to be produced in a more timely fashion. Now, shortly, I will show you some of the headline outputs, if you like, of our project. But one of the things that I want to emphasize is that everything that we are doing here is consistent with the data that the ONS publish. All we are trying to do is use statistical models to make these estimates available more quickly, so as that we don't have to wait until 6 months after the end of a particular quarter to understand what might be happening in a particular regional economy. Instead, we can wait for the UK release of GDP, run our model, and at that point, around the same timescale as we get that data for the UK as a whole, we can infer what that might mean for regional growth. So what we've done through phase 1 and phase 2 of our project is develop that mixed frequency macroeconomic model that I talked about before. So that uses data at an annual frequency, the traditional regional growth data, but also data at a quarterly frequency, most obviously UK GDP, but also now the regional short-term indicators, or RUSTIs, which the ONS now produce, But we also incorporate within the model a small selection of other macroeconomic indicators for the UK as a whole. Everything we've done so far in our project is focused on what used to be called NUTS1 regions of the UK. These are now known as ITL1 regions. And these are the traditional aggregate regions of the UK and include the devolved nations of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. In the work that I'll talk about shortly, which we're about to commence, we will go one level below this to more disaggregated regions, the so-called ITL2, what used to be NUTS2 regions. So what's our project been able to do so far? Well, first of all, we've shown that these sorts of methods can be used to produce these higher frequency estimates, not just of emerging and current growth, but also historical growth. So we're able to use our model to infer what quarterly growth at regional level was historically back to the 1970s, consistent with the ONS's published annual data and the published UK quarterly data. But we're also able to show how on receipt of the equivalent UK data, so UK quarterly GDP data, we're able to produce more timely and relatively accurate estimates of regional growth. And what we've been doing since the end of 2018 is publishing these data online at esco.ac.uk/regional nowcasting. So you can go there and see every quarterly update that we've published since that point with updated regional growth estimates over this period. And we've published a number of academic papers alongside this, using these data to look at how the UK regional economies have performed over time. In addition, we've seen stakeholders in government, the media and the private sector make use of these data because what these data enable is a more granular and faster understanding of what might be happening in the regions and nations of the UK, given what we know about the performance of the economies of the UK as a whole. Now, if you go to one of the papers that we published off the back of our work in this project, you'll be able to look at some of the analysis that we've done using these data. So, for example, we've been able to look at regional business cycles, not only to explore how these might be different from the UK in terms of how often they occur, because of course we expect that regional economies will typically be experience more fluctuations, economic fluctuations, than the economy of the country as a whole. But also we've been able to look at how long particular recessions have lasted for and when they commenced. So we're able to say the UK as a whole entered recession at a particular point, which regions entered recession before then and which after then, which emerged before the UK as a whole and which remained in recession after the UK as a whole emerged from recession. So we're able to do some interesting business cycle comparisons of the regions to the UK as a whole. And as you can see on the chart that we've provided, when we use these data to look at recovery from the 4 main UK recessions prior to the pandemic, we can see quite clearly regional differences in the pace from which different regions have emerged. This sort of analysis wasn't possible before we produced these estimates, because essentially all we had at that point was annual data, which makes business cycle type analysis quite difficult. So what's coming up next? The next stage of our project will be moving from, first of all, the ITL1 regions, so the old NUTS1 regions of the UK, which you can see on the figure here. So that's a relatively small number of regions, and they're quite big. The first thing we're going to do in the extension to the next phase of this project is to look at the next level down, so the so-called ITL2 regions, or the NUTS2 regions as they used to be known, of the UK. And so we now, instead of having a small number of regions, relatively small number of regions, we now have over 40. So the size of our model, our macroeconomic model, is going to expand because we've got to incorporate not only the regions in terms of ITL1, not only the UK, but we also need to model these ITL2 regions. So one of the big challenges for us is going to be to develop methods that allow our statistical model to operate with this number of regions within it. And that's far from trivial and will take up quite a bit of our time through the next 18 months. So that's the first thing. We want to be able to, in the same way that we can produce estimates of regional growth in the UK right now, to the same approximate timescale as UK quarterly GDP data is released, we want to be able to do the same for the ITL2 regions. So that would mean that when UK GDP came out, we would run our model and understand what that signal that we get about the UK economy implies about growth in the ITL1 and ITL2 regions of the UK. And that would take place around 4.5 to 5 months ahead of the ONS publishing their quarterly ITL1 regional data, the short-term indicator data, and we would also have a timing advantage relative to the publication of quarterly GDP data for Scotland from the Scottish Government and the Northern Ireland short-term indicator from NISRA. So in all cases, we still have a timing advantage in what we're doing, but we'll also be doing this at ITL2, a more disaggregate region, than the ITL1 regions that the Scottish Government, NISRA and the ONS currently produce data on a quarterly basis for. Now, of course, once we've developed that model, we want that model to incorporate all the data we have. So we also have to incorporate these regional short-term indicator data from ONS, Scottish Government and NISRA. So again, we can start, you can see again how our model is getting larger and larger. And therefore the computational burdens of estimating that model increase. And that's really where one of the main challenges for this piece of research is developing a model that is able to be estimated given how much information we are requiring the model to handle. Now, if you've been following the developments in UK GDP and national accounts, you'll be aware the ONS are increasingly using administrative data sources, principally in the case of GDP, VAT return data. And what we're going to seek to do in this new phase of our project is incorporate these sorts of data within our model and evaluate the effect that these have on the accuracy of our growth estimates. So that's the three big areas of the next phase of our work. First of all, getting the model to work effectively with the ITL2 regions. Secondly, to get the model to work well with ITL2 regions with the additional short-term indicator data we've got, and then to see how our estimates change and hopefully become more accurate as we incorporate information from the VAT returns data. So I'm going to finish this video by highlighting a set of publications that we have derived from the work that we've done so far. These are published in academic journals, but if you want to access copies of them, if you visit the websites of any of the authors of this work, you'll find open access versions of these papers. In addition, if you visit escoe.ac.uk/regional nowcasting, You will find all of our regional nowcasting updates so far, as well as links to various discussion papers and blog articles that we've written through the project so far. I hope you found that interesting, and if you want to know more about our project or give us some feedback or ask a question, please get in touch with us. Our details are online and we'd be very happy to speak to you about this project. Thank you for listening to this short video and enjoy the rest of the conference.